Today, we're going to talk about loyalty and rewards with Bish Smear. He's our CEO of I can't say it. He's our CEO of Enigmatic Smile, and he's been working with us for several years now. We also have Alan Bay, our founder. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about Aventus. I think you guys know who we are, but we are your trusted technology partner for blockchain and Web3 needs. We enable global brands and lifestyle companies to deploy tokenization assets rapidly. Bish, the CEO of Enigmatic Smile, is joining us here. They're revolutionizing the linked rewards industry. We're really excited to hear what Bish has to say, so I won't spoil the details there, but they are the go-to partner for 12 million linked consumers across 11 countries, which is very, very impressive. We're really excited to have you, Bish. All right, let's talk about loyalty programs. Web2 based loyalty programs is kind of where we are today, right? I know me personally as a consumer, I feel like I'm part of many loyalty programs, everything from my favorite coffee shop to hotels, car rentals, etc. On average in the US, every person belongs to 18 different loyalty programs. I would argue that mine feels like 36. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not great at keeping up with how many points do I have, where am I, how loyal, where do I have something free, that sort of thing. I was just sharing before the call as we were practicing here that I'm the type of person that I'll log into my Marriott rewards, for example, or insert whatever. And I'm like, oh, look, I have 3 free nights because I can't keep up with all of it, right? You've got the airlines, you've got coffee, retail, shopping, car rentals. It's just so many. And so how do we make sure that consumers want to be engaged and can be active and leverage more of them? And we're going to talk about that today. All right, let's talk about where the Web2 based reward programs fall short. Sometimes the reward isn't high value enough, or maybe you have to my point about getting free hotel room nights, you feel like you have to have like 30,000 points to get one like moderate hotel room, right? So just that high value enough, it's not a big enough incentive. Also, reward points are portable, right? That's why it feels like I'm joined to 36 different ones. Whether it's Starbucks, what have you, I can't switch points between an airline mile, a coffee shop, and a hotel, for example. And then they're so ubiquitous. We talked about that, right? They're everywhere, prevalent, right? I mean, my local plant store here in Austin, Texas is offering a rewards program. It is literally a punch card. But how do we get an integrated ecosystem versus these point-to-point solutions? And that's why we're going to talk to Bish today. We talked a little bit about some of the Web2 limitations, but this is kind of on the back end. If you think about it, you've got limited and siloed data privacy concerns, lack of real-time data insights, and we don't have any sort of predictive analytics in the Web2 world. And with Web3, we will have a lot of different possibilities and opportunities, right? It's platform agnostic from a technology perspective. You'll get real-time data insights. What are people using? How are they engaging? That sort of thing. Reward personalization and ownership is super important, right? Consumers are trying to get more and more personalized with their experiences with your brands. And so that's what Web3 can offer as well. And Bish will talk about that. Reward liquidity and portability, we talked about that, right? You have all these different ones to keep up with versus a standardized platform across all of them. And then the transparency and efficiency. Web3 will give you the transparency and efficiency that you need, both on the business side and for the consumer. All right, Bish, I think you're up. So you and Alan talk a little bit about why decentralized rewards are the future.
I just realized I'm on mute. Hi, thank you. That's a big subject, right? The whole subject's a big subject. You've got, even in the run-up on your introduction, there were maybe 20 points, and all of them converge in this subject matter of decentralizing rewards. All of them do. For sure, the world's brands, I mean, the whole economy, the entire worldwide economy is not exactly soaring at the moment. There's some problems in many places, so many businesses going out of business, so many people can't afford to even pay the electricity bill because it's so expensive. And then for business owners, but then on the consumer side as well, far too many people don't have enough money. There's governments examining UBI programs where they're going to airdrop people money. There's so many points converging in this interesting space of rewards and loyalty. So there are, in every reward program I see, there is a buyer and a seller, or a merchant or a consumer. They're two sides of the equation. And in the world of crypto, we've got the same sort of thing, a buyer and a seller of two different points. So on a point level or a liquidity level or whatever we want to call it, there's always two parties. And exactly that same function is happening in the normal world between consumers and merchants, and between governments and citizens on all levels. There's something got to fit in the middle of there. And all of the programs that exist within Web2 or have historically existed within Web2 require a centralized party to field or engage all the transactions that are happening in different places. Now, obviously, in the financial system world, that is the big companies that stand in the middle of every transaction, the banks or whoever standing in the middle of every transaction. And that same thought process in terms of reward programs or loyalty exists within loyalty companies and managers or custodians of consumer points and consumer data. In the financial world, custodianship is regulated activity. In the normal rewards program world, it's not regulated activity. So all of these cashback programs and points programs and all of this stuff that's going on are in essence holding consumer value that has been printed out of thin air by some party, a retailer or some company they can engage with. So the problem is, and we saw it in COVID, a lot of big businesses went bust. So you saw massive retailers going out of business, and all the points on those consumers' points cards basically became vaporous instantly. So this idea that value can just be eliminated at the will of a central party, whether it's a retailer, a loyalty program, or someone else in the chain, if value can just be eliminated straight away off of millions of consumers, there's a danger in there, and there's a feeling of lack of confidence there. And if all these programs since the beginning of time have been giving out points and modifying consumer behavior in that way by incentivizing different things, if the value itself is not captured in a transparent manner, it's not long before consumers are like, this is just all nonsense. It's not real. There's no protections. What happens if it all goes out of business? All of that stuff. So in contrast, when we move towards decentralized systems, which are, let's say, representative of that value, if the retailer goes out of business, the same problem would occur because the points can't be used anywhere. But if you can enter a decentralized system and find a way where the points can be supported by an ecosystem of participants rather than just one participant, the dangers are removed and all the benefits are retained. So there's no central party to take cuts and fees off of everything in it, and the consumers can just engage in a sensible way. For example, I've got the American Express card, and I think I had like 100,000 points on the Amex. And I was speaking to a guy in America, and he said, "I'll buy the points off you." So I was like, "You'll buy the points off me?" And he goes, "Yeah." So they buy the actual points for like thousands of actual real dollars into your hand, and then they sell them on to somebody else who's looking to get a holiday, and they can get it cheaper and arb the whole context. So there are central parties already doing that, trading points left, right, and center. There's entire exchanges set up to do that. Some really big ones, especially in the States. And a lot of the banks will sell their points through this kind of agency, which then lets the points be spent against a brand, and they all take a cut everywhere in the whole system. So that sounds great, but from an efficiency perspective, we're talking, where does the cut come from at the end of the day? Web3 allows you to not have a cut, not have central parties, And the loyalty companies, let's say, or the merchants or the retailers or whichever company is actually rewarding the loyalty, can be sort of controlling their focusing on controlling their consumer experience, while the blockchain and the Web3 stuff in the background actually does the heavy lifting and makes everything sort of more transparent and equitable for all involved. So that's why I think decentralized rewards are the future of loyalty and rewards for all kinds of brands, not just consumer brands, the whole way up the chain. It's a deep problem that at its core, that core perspective of maintenance of value can be solved in a decentralized way, but there's a whole load of levels to actually solving the problem, and many participants and great companies and people in the whole space, retailers, everyone in the whole space. It's like it needs to come together into a more effective way, and there is no way for that to happen in a way where one company controls everything. The beautiful thing about decentralization is no company controls everything, and that is essentially the future of rewards.
Bish, I have a question that is ad hoc and not, but so if you think about airline miles, right? For example, I used to be executive platinum on American, but my miles expired. Does decentralization get rid of that?
So that's a good question. From my perspective, the rules of the system are the ones everyone engage with. So if someone sets up a system, the better system will win out in the end. There's no alternative. So decentralization doesn't solve the problem if American Express wanted to add in a rule to expire points over a certain period of time. But the difference is everyone knows the rules and everyone's clear on the rules, and the rules are transparent for all involved. So in general, though, the rules are, once the rules are in place and everyone knows the rules, nothing diverts from those rules and nothing changes from those rules. And that's what people need, the confidence, not the fact that the rules can be set up in a certain way, at any time. Nobody should control them.
Right, because that actually the rules changed midway in the game. So that makes sense. It helps build trust. Awesome. Thanks for that.
Maybe just dovetailing on some of those elements that Bish was mentioning there, I think it really comes down to, it's ultimately the consumer experience, or I don't know what we want to call it, the kind of merchant or brand experience in the system, right? Because when you use these decentralized platforms, Bish was talking about some of the efficiencies there that you can already get by sort of breaking out of the silos. Obviously, whilst having the rules maintained between the different ecosystems, but we were talking before about 18 loyalty programs on average someone in America is a part of. Now, maybe you don't have enough value in every one of those individual systems, but if you were to combine the value that you have in all 18 systems and be able to express that in one direction that you're actually interested in, then you would be able to buy something you actually want to buy, right? So it's creating that utility of both interoperability between different programs, but also that kind of backbone that allows you to then, as long as the rules are adhered to between the different merchants, make sure that I can spend where I actually care about and somebody else can potentially spend their value somewhere else. And it really comes down to a notion of identity as well when we're talking about customer experience. So not only is it easier for me to use the platform across a variety of merchants or brands, it's also a real pain in the ass at any point where you have to type in your details, right? There's always somebody at a till who's like, oh, do you have our app? And it's like, no, I don't want to download it now and type in my name and email and whatever. So if you can, to a degree, control your identity, and this is one of the fundamental premises in decentralized ecosystems, you control your identity and your data, but very easily and efficiently have infrastructure to kind of plug into all of these different decentralized networks. Overall, the customer has a much better experience, and the participating brands gets much greater insight into what's going on, ultimately helping with some of the problems emerging, like cookies not being as valuable anymore.
Totally. I'm more engaged because I can buy something, right? To your point, if I can collate all the points together, then I'm more engaged because I'm like, oh, okay, there is a reward at the end of this versus just something that is meaningless to me. I'm sorry, Bish, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, not at all. I mean, I think some of the cruxes of the issue are as we said, there's like a multi-dimensional, hyperspatial, matrix level issue. But when you break it all down, the reason why rewards and this type of space is so exciting to me is because I just see it as a microcosm of the macrocosm that is the monetary system of the world. It's just an entirely similar situation. And if you look at the bigger monetary system of the world, a lot of the people who got into crypto and blockchain at the start got into it because they felt that it is unfair for a specific groups of people to control the monetary supply, which is still the same problem. So in the States, obviously, they're printing so much money now that the next thing that's happening, we have to go to war, right, to defend that money supply. Because you give people the power over the money supply, or central parties the power over the money supply, it is immensely deflationary to everyone else, and the value is going to be eroded everywhere else. When you bring that into loyalty systems, it's exactly as Alan said, the larger the network, the more partnerships that can be fostered, the more individuals that can be participating in that, the stronger the situation becomes and the more value everyone gets from that entire ecosystem. And fundamentally at the bottom of it, which is a whole nother level of thinking in itself, is the identity of a user and how that can be established. On Web3, we're establishing identity through the wallet key, yeah, which the customer has, but that's not really the connected identity to a human being in the background, because it's just like a key. It just proves I have the key. It doesn't prove I am the person. That it just proves I have the key. And so that meshing framework of Web 2 and Web 3 is still currently essential, that there is this kind of merged world on both sides, where the Web 2 world, maybe they've KYC'd or understood who that actual individual is that holds a certain key, or however it works. But there is still a convergence point that's absolutely necessary. And that's why I think we're going through this kind of middle phase at the minute, where there's a lot of companies who understand and want access to that liquidity and all of that big ecosystem, and they don't know anything about it, and they're confused about it. What does it even mean? And Aventus fulfills that great position in the middle, where it can kind of bridge the knowledge gap between the Web3 stuff and the Web2 universe that a lot of companies are currently working in.
Makes sense. Thanks, Bish. Next slide. All right, some of this we've heard of, but essentially if customers have a better experience, they're more likely to engage, right? That makes sense to everyone. You're more motivated, to Alan's point, buy something or get that reward, whatever that is, whether it's a free night, free trips, that sort of thing. The partnership increases the experience and value for all of the end consumers and how they interact with your brand. All right, Bish, I think you touched on this a little bit, but tell us what was your aha moment? What was the thing that you were like, you know what, there is a massive opportunity here to disrupt rewards? Was it something that you experienced? Was it a brainchild between you and Alan? What was the aha moment that made you start the business?
No, so my passion stems from the experience I had in my life, which was when I first opened up in a lemon field in the middle of Jordan, a book, and I was reading way back when I was 19 years old, only a few years ago. I was reading this book, and as I was reading the book and going through it, it was explaining about the current monetary system, or what that whole monetary system thing. And I got so passionate that most of the inequalities and stuff that happened in the world where could be traced back to that way of doing things, that became like quite a driver to my inner feelings. Then a little bit later in life, I bumped into sales and marketing and loyalty, and worked for lots of different companies all across the world who are doing loyalty, and just from the complete bottom, sort of dealing with an actual customer, all the way through to being involved in financial systems with prepaid cards and debit cards and credit cards and all of that kind of stuff. So there's quite a lot of information. But in 2013, I bought my first Bitcoin, and I participated in Ethereum ICO. And way back then, I knew that this technology was going to completely change the world, and I couldn't get it out of my head, because at the same time we were trying to build systems where you could have point systems between the different retailers a long, long time ago. So anyone who knew me back then knows we were talking about the same stuff then as we are now implementing now. So as that transitioned across, the problem that I had was I went off and I started building a blockchain with some guys, in I think it was Copenhagen at the time. We started building this blockchain, and I didn't know who I was dealing with. I didn't know them face to face. I knew them on the internet somehow. And so there was this trust issue. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what scam could be happening, basically. And then round about that exact same time, I met Alan through a connection, so through a mutual connection. So I met Alan, and his knowledge from where he was coming from, where they'd understood all the blockchain stuff, was, where I would say where my knowledge is today, his knowledge back then was at that point. So I didn't know any of this, right? I knew there was a solution, and I knew he had the information we needed. And right at that time, it was like a melting of minds, where I knew what I could do and he knew what he could do. And all of this stuff just kept coming together to perfect it and give us the knowledge we needed to actually implement the ideas we had in the real world. And that's that sort of Alan, and his group of people around him became the conduit for us being able to achieve what we've achieved so far, because we would never have managed to gain that information if it wasn't for having someone to do it. And of course, you meet a lot of people in the world in different countries saying they can explain things in the right way, but he's an intelligent guy and with an intelligent team, and they know how to put across quite complicated things in an easy way. So me being a simple guy, I took on board that information, and everything sort of was worked well since there. So I'd say, to disrupt the rewards industry required a lot of things, and not just disrupt, to absolutely connect in every sense the whole reward industry, which I think we're very much on the track to doing internationally. But the ability to do it had a very important connection to Web3, and I and my teams wouldn't have had the necessary knowledge and understanding if Alan and Aventus and everything there hadn't come into our lives at that point. It might have taken us another 5-6 years to learn what we could have learned just with Alan at that moment in time.
As the marketing leader of Aventus, just those sound bites will carry me through for the rest of the month. Congratulations for just being awesome. And Bish, the smartest people surround themselves with smart people. So great work. Awesome. That was really great to hear. I think we talked about this a little bit, but let's, Alan, jump in here. How did you help, Enigmatic Smile bring this to life, the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, well, there was some kind words, thanks, Bish. But I mean, it was really amazing at that time in the development of the industry. We're talking kind of early days, right? I don't know when we first got together, Bish, but it can't have been maybe
just after COVID, just before COVID, or isn't it around about then?
Yeah, 2018, 2019, something like that. So it was, from our perspective, understanding the technology and how the kind of blockchain industry worked. It was really amazing to have such a subject matter expert, but also somebody with a vision for where things could go, and being so open-minded. At that time, the world didn't even know what Bitcoin was. The majority of people, even if you Googled it, there wasn't much out there for information, right? So having the ability to work with such a domain expert and learn about how a domain worked, and be able to together come up with crazy ideas on how potential token models could work, and how the various properties of blockchain could support that use case, and then have holes blown in it by somebody like Bish, who absolutely understood the market. That back and forth, that gathering of the business intelligence and then the delivery of the solution was what was so valuable in it, right? So I think the way we've kind of discussed how we could help, the sort of deep expertise in the blockchain space, but it was really those onboarding phases, the 2 or 3 kind of in-depth sessions we had, and various other ones after delivery, that really resulted in, at least from the technological side, what we could help provide on the Web3 front to enable elements of the Enigmatic Smile ecosystem.
I think it's nice to hear that. But I think there's something else which we could add, I guess, to that conversation. And that is that something happens when you start getting involved in the blockchain world that doesn't happen in the normal Web3 world, or sorry, the Web2 world. And that is the way you think about control. Yeah, the way you think about control, or the way companies think of control. So, for example, I want to control my bank's loyalty program. I want to control my retailer's loyalty program. I control it. I'm in charge. And I'm being hyperbolic here, but that's how most people are thinking. I want to control every aspect of the experience. I want to control this. I want to control that. And of course, I think I was more open when we first got introduced but I was still kind of in that framework of mind of like, surely you need to control a business. You need to control the inputs and outputs of things. You need to have some controls on this. And it's amazing the learning curve that we've gone through over the last few years, where you get to a point where you realize you literally can't control anything, right? So there's a very strange jump in terms of the entrepreneurial feeling, going from control to no control. And that element of things is strange to interact with. So you need to make sure you get the rules right at the first place, because you need to pass yourself through that feeling. So when I say not having any control, that sounds like a scary thing. And a lot of people get put off with the ideas of blockchain and the transition to Web3 because of that specific issue of, like, it's quite a deep and fundamental, like, let's say, directorship level issue, where someone is thinking, well, I lose control. I've got all this control here, and now I'm going to lose control. But there's a trade-off with control, and that trade-off is responsibility and absolute, like, compliance requirements and this, and another universe where I don't control it. I let the consumers enjoy what they want to do. There's no vendor lock-in, and off we go. And all the best companies have figured out ways that they don't have vendor lock-in anymore. Export your data. Do what you want. If you like engaging with us, that's great. If you like engaging with someone else, that's great too. So this whole transition that includes people's thinking about sovereignty over their own data, all of that stuff that's now immortalized in law, definitely in Europe and starting to be everywhere else. That idea that each individual should have control over their data, it extends to their assets and their money and everything like this. And that's just the way the world's going. So to have siloed elements of control is the old world, and the new world is decentralized control. So allow the ecosystem to absorb that level of control for every individual. And I think that's a transition point that Alan and the team have helped guide us through, because you need to have a certain level of confidence in what does that mean. No control. Of course, there's some levels of control because the rules are set up in the first place, but it's understanding the rules, the systems, the way all of the parts link in together, and the mapping of that complexity that I think is a huge value that Aventus brought us, and the relationship brought us, and I'm sure will bring other businesses in future.
That's really it's profound for life and for business, Bish, the level of control. I think you talked about this a little bit, but tell me, for an end user, I'm an end user, I understand the transparency piece, but let's review what are all the different benefits that I get now because I'm part of this ecosystem.
From Enigmatic Smile's perspective, yeah?
Yeah.
So Enigmatic Smile is building critical rewards program infrastructure on a planetary scale. So that's our sort of mission tag, whatever you want to call it. But every syllable in that sentence expresses what we're doing. Yeah, we are building critical reward program infrastructure on a planetary scale. And that means that no one company can do that alone. So we kind of operate almost like a society or a situation of support for other reward programs and other financial institutions to engage their consumers across the board. So in our world, what would happen is we would do a deal with a company who is running their own reward programs. That company is obviously got their consumers. We would provide them through one of the companies that are parts of our group. We would provide that individual with the ability to take any credit card, any bank account, any method of normal universe payments that we all use every day, and link it and give consent for the monitoring of the transactions on that card or bank account for an instance of a merchant who wants to pay a reward. So the customer now gets automatically rewarded whenever they shop anywhere or do anything. And all we're doing is the transaction methods between the buyer and the seller, or the consumer and the retailer, is tracked. So instead of having to have a separate loyalty card, separate reward app, the merchant doesn't have to have a separate terminal or separate payment systems. Any payment system, we're just in the background of it all, and we take the consent of data from the retailer and the consent from data from the merchant. We don't do that directly. It's another partner, a rewards program manager, who gets all the consents in place, organizes things, and starts marketing that program to those end users. So it's been a really important thing to not get involved in the in what that brand or what that program wants to achieve itself, because they're smart enough to know they've got infinite experience, and there's so many great people in the loyalty industry who are working with all of their partners and all of their people. What we do is we provide the infrastructure behind that to facilitate what they can do and to facilitate their aims more effectively. And that breaks down into a number of things. First, the tracking features. We can track cards and bank accounts across the whole planet. We do it much more now than anybody else. We can basically, we're in everywhere, right? So we can watch anything. As long as we take the merchant consent and the consumer consent, the whole ecosystem is available to us. So any customer, any reward program, anywhere who wants access to the tracking of consumer data, they can't get a better footprint than we have across the whole world. Second, and that was a big goal to achieve, and we have 27 companies feeding in to do that. At the next level up, though, it's, does that rewards program want to reward people in a point, in a coupon? What do they want to do? And we've created a system which creates digital discount value and tokenizes all of that digital discount value in a manner where it's decentralized, feeding through Aventus's systems up into the wider Web3 world, so that value can transcend down into all of these programs. If somebody's got some Ethereum and they want to actually go and burn it in a shop, they can go and utilize it in a shop. And in the other way, they can earn these rewards wherever they want and bring them up to Ethereum. And the implication of this, or this model, is it's the first sort of economic model. There's nothing like it, where the value of this ecosystem is not maintained by a central party, but, for example, Bitcoin and Ethereum are not maintained by a central party. They go up and down in value all the time. In our universe, the value is actually minted by smart contracts, and the merchants distribute it as a reward. So the merchants are all distributing V dollars and V euros and V pounds as a reward to customers, and then guaranteeing or vowing to accept back that value. And in doing so, you tokenize value in such a way that the value itself is pegged not in the market to a dollar, not because there's a stable coin behind it or dollars behind it or anything like that. It's just this digital discount value that can be used in an entire ecosystem of partners. And that creates some incredible efficiency for rewards programs, which become, for rewards currency, let's say, or cashback programs, which become about 80% cheaper than what normally happens in any normal cashback program. So in terms of incrementality of sales, in terms of revenue and looking at it and going, did I make enough money or not make enough money? If the actual cost of reward is limited to 20% of what you would normally pay, and you don't need any extra cards, any other terminals, you don't even need applications or anything, because all of it's all built into the whole system, then obviously the end user connects up a card once and collects rewards forever. and they could take those same rewards and burn them back in any of the network of businesses too. None of it would be possible without the tokenomic creation and creativity and infrastructure in the background that handles that part of the rewards mechanic without what we've done with Aventus and the connections through with Aventus.
It's a really powerful story. I'm beaming with pride for both of you. Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to be respectful of our time, so we're going to be wrapping up here. We want you to contact us if you need help. But Alan, I wanted to give it over to you if you have anything that you add, any final thoughts as we wrap up our webinar today.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, I think the bottom line, the message we would like to get across here is, I mean, it's been an amazing journey so far with Enigmatic Smile, and we hope to just continue being a small part in their journey to taking over the world with rewards. But if there are any, if anyone who's watching this, we've obviously serviced a variety of different customers in a variety of different domains. At Aventus, our real expertise is we have the platform to help take care of all of the heavy infrastructure, so our clients don't need to know how this works, and we have the domain expertise to try and kind of help figure out how this technology best applies to the business use case. So anybody who's considering, looking, exploring the world of Web3, hopefully we can have a chat soon. So that's it from me. I don't know, Bish, if you want to add anything else before we say goodbye.
No, I think that was very good. I think we covered a lot of points there, and I think that in the end, I think the message is very, very clear that if you're looking for a partner who understands the space and the jump you need to have from Web2 to Web3, like all those clients below, like we're one of those clients too. I'm sure that you could do worse than calling Aventus right now and booking yourself in for a call. Thank you very much.